Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Sweet Spot.
We are your hosts.
I'm Diane.
And I'm Michael Pinball Clemens.
And we are so excited to be here today.
The Sweet Spot really is joy unspeakable, having balance in all you do.
It's being grateful, even when things aren't great. The desire to help others when you may be hurting yourself.
It is submission to a sovereign God who is in control when things look good or bad.
The Sweet Spot means happy times are happier, challenging times are growth opportunities, and love is the ruler of the day.
The Sweet Spot is resting and sometimes wrestling in the arms of the Almighty.
Simply put, if you're in your sweet spot, you're probably abiding in the fruits of the Spirit.
Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
So we hope you join us as we take this journey and engage in topics that we hope will inspire,
Encourage,
challenge,
uplift,
excite,
insight,
refresh,
restore,
revitalize,
comfort,
stimulate,
and strengthen each of you in your daily walk.
Welcome to the Sweet Spot. Hello and welcome to the Sweet Spot. We are so excited today. We have a phenomenal guest, Miss Kim Thomas, who's joining us in the studio today. Welcome, Kim Thomas.
Thank you.
Kim and I go way back. We've known each other for a long time. She is a phenomenal woman. Like, she really is the epitome of grace and beauty, and like, when you call her and you want to chat about something, and she always give you spiritual advice first, and that's what I love about her. But Kim is our youngest daughter's godmother. She is the godmother of our daughter Riley, and Kim is an educator. She is a fitness guru. For those of you who are watching podcasts, if you can see the muscles in her arms, she is like, I'm telling you, I just want to be like her, okay? But she's phenomenal, and you'll get to hear more of that a little later in the show. But Kim is an educator. She is a life coach. She's a success coach with the Board of Peel. She has her own website and own company, Lifestyle with Kim. And can you tell them your website? Because I'm sure our listeners, after hearing you on the show today, will want to check it out.
Yes, of course. So it's www.onlifestylewithkim.com.
On
On Lifestyle.
With Kim.com.
That's right, with Kim.com. But she's a mother of three. Her daughter just graduated from university. She's 22. And if you saw Kim, you would think that Kim was 22. But she has a 22-year-old, and she has two handsome sons. But you'll get a chance to hear a story as we go on today. But Kim, we just want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you
Diane.
so much
Thank
for
you, Mike,
coming.
having me.
Thank you so much for
Excited
coming
to be here with you guys.
We
on the
are
podcast.
excited.
You guys both, yes.
Yes, on the podcast, you can obviously see how beautiful she is. But on the radio, don't worry. If you can't see her, you will hear how beautiful she is.
Absolutely. But Kim, I'm so excited because you and I go way back. Like, we've known each other for what, 17
years, yeah, because we met when I was at a conference and you were at the same conference.
Absolutely.
And,
I'll never forget
What
that.
kind of conference was it?
It was a women's conference,
It
right?
was. It was a women's conference.
And I had come, I was.
So that's why I wasn't there.
That's why you were
Okay.
And that's why I know how long I've known you, because Dylan was just maybe 4 months when
That's
I was
right.
there. Yeah.
That's right. I'll never forget that because I came.
Yes.
I was had gotten on the elevator,
Yes.
and we were going down for the first meeting.
Right.
And I walk on the elevator, and I see this gorgeous woman on the elevator, and she's pushing a stroller, and I'm staring at her. I didn't even know what to say, and I'm thinking to myself, who is this? Like, she's gorgeous.
Right.
And she had this beautiful baby in the stroller, and I'm thinking, okay, I need to get to know this person because she is just, she was so well put together. And then she had a baby in tow. I was like, okay, really?
And the irony is that at the conference, I had just heard you speak. Mm-hmm. And I was saying, like, who is that woman, right? And I was in total awe of you. You know, everyone that knows Mike and Diane knows that these guys have incredible, beautiful spirits. And you guys are world changers, and I saw that. You know, I saw you on stage speaking, and I just thought, I don't know if I've shared this with you before, but I thought, I got to get to know her. I got to find out who she is.
Wow.
And then, and I knew I would eventually connect with you at the conference. But
so
then
you had this mutual get to know
Yes.
kind of
Yeah.
thing,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
I'm not sure if guys do that. Yes, see him, I need to know him.
Yes.
Maybe we do. I don't know. Yeah, okay, but
It's a
this is
connection,
good.
right?
This is
It was a
good.
connection. It was
And
definitely
then,
a
And then I
connection.
left, and then we saw each other in the elevator, and then we've been friends
Absolutely.
ever since.
Ever since, and
17
every
years.
time people see us together, the
Yeah.
first thing they ask is,
Are
"What?
you sisters?
Are we sisters?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we say, "Yes, 100%.
we
We're
are.
sisters."
All the time. All the
Oh
time.
man,
Yes.
so we're so excited to have you with us
Yes.
today, and you have a phenomenal story. Like I know that you're into health, you're into fitness,
Right.
But we want to know your personal story. We
Right,
want to
of
get to
course.
know, and we want our listeners to get a chance to understand and get to know who you are, who
Right.
Kim Thomas is.
Right.
So can you maybe just share a little bit about your family and your kids, and
Yes.
just let us get a chance to
Yeah,
hear
of
your side of
course,
the
yeah.
story.
So,
What kind of family did you grow up in? Let's start there.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Well, I have a beautiful, loving family.
Yes.
My parents are, not only incredible parents, but they're role models in the community as well. A lot of
Absolutely.
people
Absolutely.
know that about them. They're
We do.
yeah, yeah. It's funny because I grew up in a household where our house was almost like a neighborhood house where a lot of people came in
Yes.
for food. They came in for haircuts. I love telling the story how my mom used to be like a part-time barber, and she had
Mom was the barber.
yeah. She had no professional training on being a barber, but she
I love
the kids that couldn't afford to get their haircuts, my mom would say, "Come in and I'll cut your hair." And I'll be honest with you, my passion, like I work as an educator with kids at risk right now.
Yes.
My passion to help kids at risk started at a very young age, seeing my parents bring in kids at risk.
Right.
My mom and dad. My dad has a gift. There's such a good balance because my dad has a gift to make people feel loved and
He sure
happy.
does.
Oh my goodness.
He's the life of the
does.
party.
He
He's
is.
always
He is.
laughing.
Absolutely.
He's loving, And then you have my mom who is so, she would give you the shirt off her back. And she's so generous. And she, I know a lot of people will say this about their parents, but she's one of the most generous people I know, period.
Yeah.
She
I
would
can
give you
vouch
her
for
last
that, yeah.
dollar. And I remember stories of us having one loaf of bread left, and my mom would choose to feed the kids from the neighborhood, and my dad would be like, "What are the kids going to eat for lunch tomorrow?" And my mom said, "Don't worry about it. We got to help everybody out." And God always provided,
Yeah, I
So
understand that.
the legacy that I grew up with was a legacy of service. And I always say one of my mantras is two things is to share what you know, be generous and to share what you know,
Right.
and is to give back to the world more than you take.
Oh,
I love
very
that.
good.
I
Right?
love
to
that.
give back to the world more than you take.
love that.
Yes.
We've heard Oprah say it many times over and over again. But I try to be authentic in being purpose-filled in my life.
Okay. Very good.
I'm proud that my parents at a very young age coached me into pursuing my purpose and my calling and believed in me. And I love that because now in the job that I do now with kids at risk is pushing kids to realize their purpose.
Wow.
Right? Because kids that I work with at risk, they don't often have that. And we all have a position to help. We're all, it's a village to help raise kids. And so I love to help kids be able to find their success footprint and to find their purpose and their calling.
That's amazing. I love this idea of not leaving the world at a deficit, though.
Yeah.
Right? Personally giving more than you take.
Right.
Right? And
Right.
that's a beautiful, beautiful concept. And
Right.
we know mom and dad quite well.
Yes,
and
we do.
dad
Yes.
always gives him a hug as soon as
Yes.
I see him
Yes.
every Sunday in church. And I didn't know, though, I could get a haircut from mom, though. That's
Right?
So,
Right?
So,
You didn't know that either,
You
did
know
you?
when I see in church on
Yes,
Sunday,
yes.
I'm going
Right?
to bother her on
Yeah,
that, right?
see?
Yes, yes.
know
and
that.
I always need one. I'm always late. Yes.
It's passing it on. I have three amazing kids, and I honestly think.
Can you tell us about your brothers and sisters first? Give us a little bit
of course. So I'm an only girl.
Yes.
I'm an only girl, and I'm kind of in the middle because I have my younger brother Supa, who's incredible. You guys know him
Who's
as
super?
well.
Yes.
Yeah, who is super,
He's-
right?
Yes.
Super,
Yes.
super, yeah.
SUPA is his
Yeah.
name. SUPER is the person.
Yes. And you know, my fate in becoming who I am was determined because I had two incredible older brothers.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So they went ahead of me and so successful. Pastor Rob Meikle
Yes.
is
Right.
next after me.
Yes.
Who's an incredible icon in the
Oh, my
city.
goodness.
And then my eldest brother Paul is you know, also very iconic as well. My eldest brother.
Yes.
So yeah, my two older brothers were very successful in sports and academics, and paved the way for me. You know, as I saw them as mentors. And then my youngest brother came, you know, years later, but he is an icon of his own. Like there's no one
Right.
quite like
Yes,
him.
no, yes.
There's no one quite like him, right? So I always say that he got a little bit of all three of us, you know, because he's, you know, we're all three of us are very successful, but Supa, the baby,
Yes.
is a combination of all three of us.
Yeah.
Because he's a
That's
powerhouse,
great.
you know,
He really
Wow.
is.
and he's quite iconic. So I think he got the best of all
That's
three of us,
beautiful.
right?
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, so yeah, it's
So the Power family, yes,
Yes.
but the power came from out of humility, it seems,
Right,
right? Just parents
absolutely.
who loved and embraced people, who served people, who loved
Yes.
on people, and so
Yes, that's so true.
no book for parenting, but you're hearing it right here. Humility in parenting
Yes,
and
yes.
being that
Yes.
example. There's a saying, I'd rather see a sermon than hear one any day,
Right, that's
right?
right.
So
Yeah.
so thank God for them.
yes.
That's
Right.
amazing.
Yes, yes.
So tell us a little bit about your kids.
Yes, of course. So I have three kids. Dylan's the youngest. He's 17 years old, and he's an amazing kid. He plays soccer, and he's plays at a high competitive level.
Yes, he does.
He's going into grade 12, and in the middle is my son Aaron,
Right.
and he's 19. And Aaron's incredible too. I can't say enough about him.
I like to
Oh,
call
my
Aaron the
goodness.
pastor.
That-
Yes,
he is.
yes.
Every time I
Yes.
see him,
Yeah.
it's pastor.
Yeah.
He reminds me of a
He
pastor.
does. He does. Yeah, that's true. He's got a beautiful spirit.
Yes.
And then Janae, of course, is 21, turning 22, and she just graduated from university. But I can honestly say, you know, they're all very different kids, but they're such incredible children, you know, and they're great people. And going back to the piece on serving, I remember when I had when they were young, when my kids were really young, I remember. I was teaching at Mayfield at the time.
That's right,
Right? I was
yes.
teaching at Mayfield, and I was doing a lot of shows, directing shows, musicals, things like that. And then from there, I moved on to Fletcher's, and they were still young. But you reap what you sow, because I was always helping other children's and other parents' children, and I often felt guilty because I was away often, like
Yes.
producing shows, and I would be coming home late
Right.
and things like that. But God will reward you when you sacrifice and help other kids, because they are honestly three incredible kids that have turned out to do powerful things. You
They
know,
really are.
and they're just all three of them just beautiful people.
They really
and
Now listen, we love our kids. We love
Yeah.
our children,
Yeah.
and we can brag and talk about our children. But we want to say amen, because amen
Yes.
means we agree.
Absolutely.
She has
Yeah.
phenomenal children
Really
who,
do.
who are not going to impact the world, who are impacting the
Impacting,
world
that's right.
at this early
That's
age that they
right.
are right now.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing that
Yes,
with
thank
us. I think it's important for the audience to get to know who you are a little
Right.
bit, right, and where you come from.
Right.
Now, I know that you have a pretty phenomenal personal story. Your testimony is
Right.
pretty amazing.
Yes.
If you don't mind, can you maybe walk us through a little bit of your testimony, if you
for
don't
sure.
mind?
You know, and it's interesting because when I often go out and speak, my mantra through speaking is how to find your purpose through pain. You know, and helping people realize not to live in regret.
Right.
And it's funny because people will ask me, if you could relive what happened to you, would you do it again, or would you say not me? And I would say I would do it again. Like I would go through all of that again, because it has really formed the DNA of who I am. So yeah.
We got us all anxious about
Yes.
the story.
Yes.
So-
So it's I was 17 years old at the time, and I was in a very near fatal car accident. And it was pretty traumatic because of the impact of what had happened. So I was 17 years old. Actually, it was 1987 on October 19th.
Wow.
It was actually, they call that Black Monday because the stocks had crashed.
That's right.
Yeah, it was
Okay,
actually
yes.
that day. Yeah, it's interesting.
wow.
It was October 19th. And a young man driving a Mustang was going really fast and broke a red light and had hit my car broadside. The impact was so great that my car ended up going airborne and out of the intersection into a park. And it was pretty bad. You know, the injuries I sustained were life-threatening, and because the car was
Right.
flipped upside down,
Yes.
I had lost 90% of my blood, and the concern when I got to the hospital was to put me on life support because they thought I was going to be brain dead because I'd lost so much blood and oxygen. So the superficial injuries I had wasn't a concern. You could always, you know, fix broken bones, and you can always, you know,
Right.
mend, stitch your stitches on your face. But the concern was because I'd lost so much blood.
Wow.
So I'd lost all this blood, and unfortunately I had a major eye injury. My left eye had actually come out during the whole impact. So there I
Even though you were
was.
17 years and had, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So I had my left eye had actually come out at the time.
And you were 17?
I was 17, yeah. Right? You know, and it's funny too because we hear it every day. I mean, I even heard it last night. You know, there was an accident in Pickering.
That's right, yes.
And it was fatal. And there were some people that survived. But only God knows your destiny.
That's right.
You know, and the fact that God saved my life, I take that seriously, which is why I'm on a platform and on a campaign to be well and to be healthy because God saved my life for a purpose. You know, so it was hard. You know, when I got to the hospital, my mom was there. She was the first to arrive on the scene. They had said to my mom, they said, "Yeah, your daughter's like Humpty Dumpty." They said literally every bone is broken from head to toe. Because I had lacerations from head literally to toe. I had a broken bone from head to toe. They had to shave all my hair off because I had so much glass in my skull, and I had that left eye injury. I had 350 stitches on my face. My nose was broken. My clavicle bone was broken. My humerus, which is this bone here, which this scar was broken, right down to a broken foot. So I really was broken from head to toe, literally, and it was pretty traumatic when I finally saw myself, you know, because a lot of people came to visit me in the hospital. I think the turning point for me was when I had said to the nurse, I want to see myself, because there was a lot of people coming in to visit, but they were weeping when they saw me.
Right.
And I had said to the nurse, can I see myself? And she says, no. She says, Kim, you're on a suicide watch. And I said, a suicide watch? And she says, yeah, because you're 17 years old, and if you were to see yourself, you may not want to live if you saw yourself. And it was funny because I had asked her, because I was hooked up to a lot of machines, and I said, am I hooked up to life support? And I wanted to know what my condition was. And she says, you're fine. You're hooked up to blood transfusions right now and oxygen, but you're gonna live, obviously, you know. But we don't know the fate of your injuries, you know. And she said, I don't know if anyone's told you yet, but you had injured your lumbar, and there's some temporal paralysis. So they don't want to frighten you off, but right now you're not able to walk. So I'm hearing all of this, right?
So isn't this a lot for a nurse to deliver, sort of with no one else around? Like you ask a question, it's usually like they'll refer you like, well, you'll need to ask the doctor or
But I was probing her though.
Yes.
I was probing her.
You're good at that.
I wanted to know, right?
Wow,
Yeah,
wow.
I wanted to know.
She's giving you a lot of information here.
Yeah, she was.
And how are you handling this as she's giving it to you?
You know what? It was pretty surreal. I think when you go through something like that, you're glad you're alive. And then a part of me thought, why am I alive? You know, like I went through a point where I thought, I wish I wasn't alive, because if I'm going to be alive and not be able to walk, and I look like this, and it was hard at 17 to be able to see what my future was going to look like, right? I asked her if I could see myself, you know, if there was a mirror, and she said no. A part of the protocol for people like myself is to remove all the mirrors, because they didn't want me to see myself. And the irony is that my mom had said to me, she says, Kim, I will bring a mirror. I'm going to bring a mirror so you can see yourself, because I want you to realize that where you are today is not where you're going to be tomorrow.
That's
And,
powerful.
yeah, it was very
That's
powerful,
powerful.
you know. And, my family was there by my bedside reading scriptures and praying the word into my life, you know.
Was there
And
a
the
particular
scriptures.
scripture that you remember, or anything that
Yeah,
you
you
hung
know,
on to?
I do.
Yes.
I remember the book of Isaiah,
Right.
and I remember, by his stripes we are healed. I remember that
Right.
resonating over and over and over, that by his stripes we
Yes.
are healed.
Right.
And
So, in other words, there was a spiritual healing that was going on
Yes.
even before the physical, a
Absolutely.
much more important healing that was
Absolutely.
taking place.
absolutely, absolutely. So when my mom brought the mirror and I saw myself, you know, I held the mirror up and I looked in it, and when I saw that my face couldn't fit in the mirror because it was swollen, because I'd broken all the
Right.
bones in my head, I just thought, oh my gosh. And I had no hair, right?
Right.
So I was trying to look at myself and I was holding the mirror back like that, and I just thought, wow, this is pretty bad. So at that moment, I had a epiphany that I either, because I always say when I'm speaking in audiences, I say faith cancels out fear. So I had a turning point that I needed to embrace faith or not, or I would succumb to this.
Right.
And, I went through that very period where I was, woe was me.
Right.
But pretty quickly, I turned that around. And I remember one thing my
I
mom
want to say
said.
pretty quickly, how long?
Because I was actually out for a while. Like I
Right.
was out for a while before I came to. So I would say maybe, let's say the second week in the hospital.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So I had an epiphany when my mom said to me, she says, Kim, a lot of people are coming and praying for you and reading scriptures, but the breakthrough will not happen until you receive the breakthrough, until you receive it.
Right.
People can come and they can
Right.
pray for you and lay
That's
hands
right.
on you, but until
That's
you
right.
link faith with
That's
their
right.
faith,
Right.
Amen.
you're going to
Yes.
be stuck.
100%.
Right? So my mom says you have to believe that you
Wow.
will be healed,
Wow.
that by his stripes you were healed, and that God is able to heal you and to do exceedingly abundantly
Right.
beyond what you could ever imagine.
Amen.
And she
Amen.
said, Kim, do you receive it? And then like that, I received it. I made a connection, and it's interesting because I began to, I surrendered because I said to God, God, I surrender to your will.
Right.
And I think it's a powerful concept because we know people, all of us know people that are either sick, have accidents, or have had cancer.
Yes,
We know
absolutely.
cancer survivors.
That's right.
And we know people that have not survived from cancer.
That's right.
And we have prayed for those that have gone on that have had cancer.
That's right.
And that's the deck of cards that God has dealt them. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So we have to surrender to God's will because we have to,
That's
at the
right.
end of the day, realize that God is sovereign.
Right. Yes, he is in control.
Right? So I surrender. I says, God, I would love to be a recipient of your miracles and your healing, but I surrender all,
Amen.
whatever that looks
So
like.
yes, whatever that is.
Because they had told me, and I said, I receive your healing, but I surrender all.
Wow.
No matter
And
what.
no matter what.
No matter what. With all the cuts, with all the bruises, without no hair,
Right.
everything,
Yes.
you surrender
Yes.
all.
Heal me, Lord. I want to be recipient of a miracle.
Amen.
Nevertheless, I surrender all. Whatever your plan is for me.
Whatever you have
Yeah.
for me.
Powerful.
Yeah.
That's powerful. At 17, that's powerful.
Yeah.
So as this process is going now, you're 17. How long were you in the hospital?
So I was in the hospital for about a month.
For about a month.
4 weeks.
Right.
And then from there, I went to rehab.
So you went to a live-in rehab facility?
No,
or
I was able
you-
to
or
go
you-
home.
You were able to go home.
I was able to go home and.
So
and
transported back. What was it like the first time you got into a car again?
it was okay.
It was
I
okay.
was glad
Did
to
you
be out of the
remember?
hospital.
Did you
Yeah.
remember the accident at all?
No, because I had amnesia, right?
Okay,
Yeah, that's
okay.
funny because I remember when they served us.
Amnesia can be a blessing.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah, so-
but I
so I'm
remember
sorry,
when
continue.
I remember when the police came to our door and served us a notice saying that because they had heard that I had amnesia. So the guy that hit us said that I was one that broke the red light because he had heard that I had amnesia.
Oh,
So he
wow.
was flipping it and saying that I broke the red light
Yes.
because they heard I had amnesia, but I
Right,
wouldn't remember.
right. Oh,
So they said when
wow.
they put her in front of the judge, she has amnesia. So how could she
Right.
remember?
Right.
So
Wow.
they were, and that's a whole other story. They were trying to say I'm the one. But, almost suddenly God began to after that third week, God began to do things that was miraculous. Because my eye, as I told you, had come out, and I had a doctor, Dr. Allen, who they had to fly in from Banff. He was on holidays.
Okay.
They only had one doctor that they flew in. And I was at Sunnybrook Hospital. I was at a high trauma hospital. And they flew in Dr. Allen to do the operation. And they had said to me that because the muscles were so badly torn, I'd never be able to, my eye was saved. My eyeball was saved. I wouldn't have to have a fake eye. But I wasn't going to be able to blink or move my eye left or right. Wow. And it's funny because when he came back, like at the 4th or 5th week, and my eye opened, he dropped his clipboard and he says, "I can't believe you're actually blinking because I did this surgery and you just didn't have the muscles." He says, "That's a miracle."
Wow.
Yeah. So you know what happened? It was the miracles were snowballing. My eye had opened up. It began to blink and it began to move. And they had said originally that I wouldn't have that. The other miracle was that I didn't have any paralysis, that I was able to walk. They had predicted that I wasn't going to walk for almost a year. And
how fast did you walk?
I was walking within about a month.
Wow. Yes.
I was.
God.
Yeah. And it's funny because they had also, the plastic surgeons had booked a series of 3 different plastic surgeries because I had 350 lacerations on my face. And I think one of the more visible versions of the miracles is that I actually never had the plastic surgery because the scars disappeared.
Okay.
Oh, so the
God is
scars,
good, huh?
the
Yeah.
scars just left.
They just left.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
like
So-
350
Yeah.
stitches and.
Yeah, they had.
Everything.
I never had plastic surgery. Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah. So in the end, I had this one scar, which you could see it's visible because they put a metal plate. My left humerus bone was crushed too badly, so they had to put a plate and they had to put some pins. And I kept going back for visits, obviously over the 2 years, and they asked if I wanted this removed. Very easily they could remove the scar, and I said no, I'll keep it because because without the scar you wouldn't even know that I had gone through all that I'd gone through.
Absolutely.
And I said I would keep it because I want to be reminded of
Wow.
what I've walked through, right?
Yes.
What I've walked through.
That's
And,
amazing. So now doing this process, because I mean, being in sport,
Yes.
kind of had the injury thing before.
Right.
Obviously, nothing
Right.
even remotely compared to the scope of this.
Yes.
But there are points at which you just get frustrated with the process.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Were you ever there? Did you ever reach a
Yeah.
point where you were kind of like?
I did, Mike. I did. I had those moments where I just thought, wow, this is taxing on me. And I think one of the biggest turning point where I had that moment of really low was I was able to finish high school, obviously, and graduate and go to university. And in my first year of university, I woke up one morning and I noticed I couldn't open my left eye. And I thought, oh boy, here we go, right? Because I've been healed and walking in university by now, and everything was good. And I thought, here we go. And I went to touch my eyeball, and it sounds gross, and it is, but my eye had actually rolled back into my head. And there is a bone underneath everyone has it underneath your eyeball called the orbital rim.
Right.
And my orbital rim through the accident was cracked, and they hadn't fixed it. So what had happened is over a year, through pressure and gravity, that orbital rim broke. And the orbital rim is what keeps our eyeball in place. So that orbital rim actually broke. It gave away, like a bridge giving away. And then my eye fell back. So I thought, oh my gosh, my eyeball's in the back of my head. I thought, I got to save this eyeball.
Right.
So it's funny because I was at Queen's University.
Right.
And I was actually very close to the hospital. And I actually, walking distance, walked over to Kingston General Hospital. And I said, I need to get into an air ambulance or something because I need to get back to Sunnybrook Hospital because I want to save this eye. They thought I was crazy, right? But anyway, I ended up going back, went back to Sunnybrook, and they said, Kim, they said, this is really bad. They said, we have to save your eye, so on and so forth. And they said the irony is that we've got this doctor who is from Seattle by the name of Dr. Gruss. Thank you, Dr. Gruss, if you're out there. Yeah, so he's still around. But he was actually, ironically, teaching in Toronto.
So you just happened to be there.
Happened to be there teaching the first ever bone graft in Canada.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so he actually was coming to Toronto to teach how to do a bone graft, which was the surgery that I needed to happen within 24 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
Within 24 hours.
To save the eye.
To save that.
In God something?
Otherwise, I would have had a
Yes.
glass eye, a
Yes.
fake eye.
Sometimes God just shows off.
In
doesn't
God
he?
something?
Yeah. He does, yeah. Right?
That's,
So there I was, and with my mom and dad, and they said, "Listen, either you take this or you don't, or we wait." And she loses her eye, and she gets a glass eye, which would make me look a lot different today. So I thank God for that opportunity that God opened that door. So anyway, they had a waiver, and they said, "Yeah, if you have this surgery, because it's the first, you have to sign off that you could have paralysis, that you could have blindness." And then my dad said, "Wait a second, is it worth her having this surgery,
Right.
this first doctor, Dr. Grez, and you might have all these side effects?" Because my dad's very practical, because we're
Right.
signing this waiver saying,
Yes.
you're having this surgery, but don't hold us accountable,
Right.
because you might end up with being blind, having brain damage, and all these
The
things
list of other things.
with this surgery. And then my dad says, "We got to look at that list and think, should we do this surgery?"
Surgery.
And then my mom came in and said to my dad, "I hear the practical list, but I also want to go with the faith piece and realize that God put us here with this Dr. Gress for a reason, and we're signing." And we signed.
Wow.
And then I was in the operation room the next day. And it was daunting because, again, they had to shave my hair off. And the operation involves shaving your hair off and opening your head from ear to ear, completely opening your head. And what they do is they take bone from your skull, because the bone underneath your skull is like Play-Doh. So they opened my head up.
Yes.
They scooped out about 3 chunks from my head, which I still have those blank spots today. And they took those big chunks of Play-Doh from your skull, and then they made an incision under my bottom eyelash and pulled my whole face open and had to rebuild, because they had to use this material from my skull to form a new orbital rim.
Wow, this is the ultimate in suspense.
This
We are going to end right there, and
Wow, what a
we're going to come
story.
back and we're going to finish this story, right?
Right.
And we're going to finish it today, but you can't hear it until next week because we're going to have you stay tuned. It's a way to get you to come back. So, Kim, this has been an absolute treat, and we're gonna stay here. We're
Yes,
gonna
yes,
we
please
have to
don't
finish
leave.
this
We're
because
going to do a part
people
two.
have to know.
People have to hear
Okay.
this. People have to hear it. But we want to thank everyone for listening and tuning in to Kim Thomas today, as we always love to end the sweet spot with the words of Everett Everett. "I am only one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. What I can do, I ought to do. And what I ought to do, by the grace of God, I will do." Until next time, stay in your sweet spot.
Sun will shine again.